On March 31, 2026, in a Kyiv press conference that marked a quiet but significant shift in how the world's defense industry is reorganizing around the Ukraine war, Terra Drone Corporation, a Tokyo Stock Exchange-listed company that had spent the previous decade building drone technology for agriculture and infrastructure, announced its first strategic investment in a Ukrainian defense firm. The partner, Amazing Drones, a company founded by volunteer engineers and soldiers that has spent 4 years building interceptor systems tested in live combat against Russian drone swarms. The product they announced together, the Terra A1, an interceptor drone with a maximum speed of 300 kilometers per hour, a range of 32 kilometers, a 15-minute flight endurance, electric propulsion for near-silent operation, and a unit cost of approximately $3,000. This partnership is not primarily a story about a new weapon system. It is a story about the economics of modern air defense, and why those economics are now driving decisions in Tokyo, London, and eventually in every capital that is watching the Iran war and the Ukraine war simultaneously. Tokushige's path to this investment is its own data point. According to the Kyiv Independent's reporting on the announcement, he first visited Ukraine in September 2025, ignoring Tokyo's official travel advice, and has since made 8 trips, traveling from Poland to Kyiv by bus and train when commercial air was not viable. He met over 100 Ukrainian defense technology companies. He concluded that the interceptor sector, air defense drones designed to engage other drones, had the biggest untapped potential in global defense markets. He initially failed to convince Japanese investors of their importance. The Iran war changed that calculation. The same Iranian Shahed drones that Russia has been deploying against Ukraine in swarms of hundreds per night are the same design being used against Gulf states, shipping lanes, and U.S. military bases in the Middle East. The demand signal for a cost-effective, deployable, combat-proven interceptor is now global. Here's the arithmetic that drives Russia's drone strategy in its simplest form. Russia produces Geran 2 drones, its domestic version of the Iranian Shahed 136, at a reported daily rate of up to 1,000 units. Each unit costs Russia somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000, depending on the variant. Ukraine engages them with systems including Patriot PAC-3 interceptors that cost approximately $4 million each. That is an 80-to-1 cost ratio in Russia's favor per successful intercept. According to Ukrainian local media, Russia launched over 6,000 Shahed-type drones against Ukraine in March 2026 alone. The single-day record on March 24th was 948 drones launched simultaneously. If Ukraine intercepted every one of those 948 drones with Patriot missiles, the intercept cost would have approached $4 billion for a single day of defense. That is not a sustainable equation. It was never designed to be. Russia's strategy is not to physically eliminate Ukraine with drones. It is to exhaust Ukraine's air defense missile inventory so that a subsequent ground or ballistic missile offensive meets a degraded defensive network. The interceptor drone is the structural answer to that strategic problem. The Terra A1 specifications were designed around the Shahed's specific threat profile. The Shahed 136 cruises at approximately 200 kilometers per hour at low altitude, too slow for most air-to-air missiles to cost-effectively engage, but too fast for ground-based gun systems to reliably intercept at range. The Terra A1's 300 km per hour maximum speed gives it a 100 km per hour closure rate advantage over the Shahed, enough to intercept and neutralize the target. Its electric motor produces a heat signature low enough to reduce detection on approach and generates near-zero acoustic signature. According to Amazing Drones CEO Maxim Klimenko, cited by United 24 Media, the system covers the entire cycle from airspace surveillance to target detection to neutralization within its 15-minute flight window. One drone, one Shahed, $3,000 versus up to $50,000. The cost ratio reverses direction entirely. Japan's motivation for this partnership is not primarily about Ukraine. It is about what Ukraine's battlefield has produced that Japan cannot generate domestically. 4 years of live combat data on low-cost autonomous systems operating in heavily jammed environments against peer-level electronic warfare. According to Terra drone CEO Tokushige, cited by the Kyiv Independent, Tokyo has grown concerned about the possibility that drones could reach Japan from neighboring Russia, China, or North Korea. Japan's defense budget for 2026 is its largest in modern history at 9.04 trillion yen. Behind that number lies China's consistent military activity around Taiwan and the South China Sea, North Korea's accelerating missile program, and Russia's Pacific presence. Japan as an island nation has a specific vulnerability to exactly the kind of dispersed drone swarm tactics that Ukraine has spent 4 years learning to counter. The Terra Amazing Drones partnership gives Japan access to combat-validated interceptor technology, integrated production relationships, and a development pipeline that is constantly being refined by real-world engagements rather than simulations. The strategic exchange is not charitable. Ukraine offers Japan something that no defense contractor can manufacture in a laboratory, technology that has been tested in the highest tempo drone warfare environment in human history and continuously upgraded based on live combat feedback. Zelensky confirmed in a February interview with Kyoto News that Ukraine is ready to share its sea drone technology, the Magra naval drone series that sank Russian warships and displaced significant portions of Russia's Black Sea fleet from coastal positions, alongside interceptor drone capabilities. Japan is an island nation that faces maritime threats from 3 nuclear-armed neighbors. The relevance of Ukraine's naval drone doctrine to Japan's own coastal defense is direct. In return, Japan provides what amazing drones cannot scale without: stable capital that bypasses the wartime bank loan problem Ukrainian defense companies face, mass production expertise, and access to global markets that Ukraine's current export licensing restrictions prevent it from reaching directly. Subscribe. We build these equations every week. The current Terra A1 requires a human operator to authorize each engagement decision. According to Klemenko's statement at the launch event cited by multiple outlets, the next development priority is removing that requirement entirely: automatic launch, independent target detection, and interception without operator intervention. The reasoning is not optional engineering ambition, it is operational necessity. Russia launched 948 drones in a single day in March. No human operator network can maintain focus and decision speed across that volume of simultaneous incoming targets for an extended period. The fatigue point becomes the vulnerability. An autonomous intercept system that can operate continuously, prioritize targets by threat profile, and engage without waiting for human authorization removes the bottleneck that Russia's swarm volume is specifically designed to exploit. This is the same underlying logic as the Lucas drone deployed in Operation Epic Fury: autonomous AI coordination, allowing a system to adapt targeting priorities based on active conditions. The Ukraine-Japan partnership is building the defensive equivalent of that offensive capability. The production model itself reflects lessons learned from 4 years of Ukrainian manufacturing under active threat. Notice, according to United 24 Media, Tokushige stated directly that if a traditional factory were built, it would become a target. The production plan for Terra A1 follows Ukraine's established pattern for wartime manufacturing: dispersed small facilities that present no single high-value target for Russian strikes, with assembly workers capable of producing multiple units per day, and a first batch of 1,000 units delivered directly to Ukrainian armed forces for battlefield validation before any further scaling. Terra Drone is bringing Japanese engineers and production specialists to Ukraine rather than moving production to Japan first, because, as Tokushige stated, the most important thing right now is real combat deployment. Battlefield feedback drives the product iteration cycle. The Japanese production expertise arrives after the combat data tells engineers what to optimize. On March 27, 2026, British-made RapidRanger short-range air defense systems were photographed in operational deployment during a visit by Ukraine's Defense Minister Fedorov, alongside Lithuania's Defense Minister Kaunas, to mobile air defense group positions. This was the first confirmed operational use of the system. The RapidRanger is a Thales UK product, a stabilized launcher turret under 500 kilograms, mounted on a Spanish URO VAMTAC tactical vehicle, carrying 4 ready-to-fire missiles in 2 panniers. Those missiles can be Starstreak 2, a laser-guided projectile that exceeds Mach 3 and uses 3 sub-munitions for terminal impact, or the lightweight multi-role missile, known as Martlet, which carries a 3-kilogram warhead with laser beam riding guidance and a range exceeding 6 kilometers from ground launch. The critical detail about both missiles, laser beam riding guidance, requires the operator to maintain a targeting laser on the threat, but the missile itself does not receive radio frequency signals that electronic warfare can disrupt. Russia's truck-mounted GPS jamming systems, which have been effective at degrading drone navigation and GPS-guided munitions, have no effect on a laser-guided intercept. The RapidRanger deployment completes a specific gap in Ukraine's layered air defense architecture. At high altitude, Patriot and NASAM systems handle ballistic missiles and aircraft. At medium altitude, Iris-T batteries engage cruise missiles. The low-altitude layer, where Shaheds operate, DEADLEST, where decoy Gerber drones fly, where Russia's high-volume swarm operations are concentrated, has historically been the most difficult and most expensive tier to defend. RapidRanger and Interceptor drones are both specifically designed for this tier. The £1.7 billion UK package that includes the RapidRanger and 5,000 LMM missiles also carries a technology transfer agreement for local production of both the launcher components and the missiles in Ukraine, meaning Britain is not just delivering hardware, it is funding a domestic Ukrainian manufacturing capability that will outlast the immediate delivery. The Kyiv Independent's reporting on the Terra drone announcement includes a specific observation from Tokushige. He is confident there is strong demand for the Terra A1 following the Iran war. The same Iranian Shahed 136 design that Russia mass deploys against Ukraine is the same airframe being used by Iran and Iran-backed groups across the Middle East. The economics of the Intercept problem are identical, whether the geography is eastern Ukraine, the Persian Gulf, or the Taiwan Strait. Any nation facing that threat profile has the same structural incentive to invest in interceptor drones that Ukraine has been demonstrating in combat for 4 years. According to the Kyiv Independent, Japanese companies had long observed Ukraine's defense sector from a distance, while Tokyo's government discouraged engagement. The Iran war converted that observation into action, because the threat that Ukraine has been defending against is no longer confined to Eastern Europe. Japan's moves in the first quarter of 2026 collectively represent a strategic posture shift that goes beyond any single investment. A record defense budget, the first Japanese company investing in an active conflict zone's defense sector, the Japanese Defense Ministry separately exploring purchases of Ukrainian combat drones, an intergovernmental framework being negotiated for defense technology transfer. These are not coincidental decisions. They reflect Tokyo's reading of the same threat environment that Ukraine has been operating inside for 4 years. Low-cost autonomous systems deployed at scale, against which expensive legacy platforms provide diminishing returns. Japan's constitutional restrictions on defense exports are under review precisely because the Terra drone investment demonstrates the strategic value of being a supplier and partner in the next generation of defense technology, not just a purchaser. Run the March 2026 numbers against the Terra A1's unit cost to understand what is actually at stake in this partnership. Russia launched over 6,000 Shahed-type drones against Ukraine in March. If Ukraine had intercepted everyone with a Patriot PAC-3, the cost would have exceeded $24 billion. If Ukraine had intercepted everyone with a Terra A1, the cost would have been approximately $18 million. That difference, nearly $24 billion per month, represents Russia's entire strategic theory of this phase of the war. Russia is not trying to physically overwhelm Ukraine with 6,000 drones per month. It is trying to make the defense of Ukraine economically unsustainable for Ukraine's supporters. An interceptor drone that costs $3,000 per unit, manufactured domestically using Japanese production expertise, directly addresses the mechanism through which that strategy operates. The honest analytical caveats that deserve stating directly. The Terra A1 is confirmed in specifications but is still in the battlefield validation phase. The initial production batch of 1,000 units is the first test of whether the system performs at scale under combat conditions. The autonomous intercept capability that both companies have identified as the priority is a development target, not yet deployed. And Ukraine's current export licensing restrictions mean the global market access that Japan can provide is contingent on regulatory changes that have not yet been formalized. The interceptor drone concept is validated by combat. Ukrainian interceptor drones have reportedly accounted for approximately a third of Shahed intercepts in some reporting periods. The Terra A1 and the Japan partnership represent scaling that validated concept through an established manufacturing and distribution architecture that Ukraine's domestic industry cannot build alone under wartime conditions. What Japan brought to this partnership that investment capital alone does not explain is credibility. The credibility of a company whose CEO made 8 trips to a country his government advised against visiting, traveling by bus and train through Poland, to find engineering that existed nowhere else. The result announced on March 31st in Kyiv is not a contract between a major defense contractor and a government procurement office. It is a partnership between a combat-validated startup that began as a volunteer initiative and a civilian drone company that decided the future of defense technology looks more like Ukraine's dispersed workshops than like the headquarters of established arms manufacturers. That assessment is shared by the UK's £1.7 billion investment in RapidRanger production, by Japan's record defense budget, and by every government that is now watching the Iran war add a second theater to the validation data that Ukraine's battlefield has been generating since 2022. The Shahed is everywhere now. The interceptor answer is beginning to follow. This video is based on publicly available reports and analysis. Some details may be subject to change.